Today's an interesting lesson as we're taking everything that we've learned the last 2 weeks and begin to apply it into the material world, into the physical, into what you and I live every day. What we're really doing is learning who we are truly in the spiritual sense. And then how do we apply that? How do we live that out? How do we allow that to be true for us? We can know who we truly are, but yet not have it be true for us in the physical. It's called split energy. You and I have done it often in our lives. But as we move to a place where we don't want to do that anymore, there are ways that we can begin to look at things differently. And part of that, I think, is today with some wonderful tools that I have found help me tremendously. So remember Tuesday night for those where we go deeper to go higher. This Tuesday night, I'm going to do a detour a little bit. We normally follow what happens on Sunday. But a couple weeks ago, if you remember when I had you put your hand on your heart and say, I love myself unconditionally, there were some reactions in the audience. Some people were like, no, that didn't work quite right. So I've had some folks that, I'm coaching and also in myself, was how do we get a deepening of that place of where we truly love ourselves unconditionally? So Tuesday night, I'm going to share with you a process that I'm working on that allows us to go deeper in that whole understanding of what does it mean to love ourselves unconditionally. Because one of the things that I'm finding that until the degree that I can love myself unconditionally is the degree that I can experience unconditional love. And to the degree that I can love myself unconditionally is the degree that I can love you unconditionally. If you remember, the master teacher said, love others as you love yourself. Somehow that as you love yourself got lost. But as we begin to focus on that, it begins to radiate a whole nother level of love, and we're going to work through some of that on Tuesday. Hopefully we'll get back on track and pick some of it up. If not, we'll do it the following Tuesday. So if you're interested in that, at 7 o'clock here in the sanctuary, and we go to 8:30. We've been talking about this question, what if life was really a sacred adventure? What if it's not what we've been told it was? That you come in, you're born to two parents, and you end up leaving at 80, 90, whatever, short period of time on the planet, relatively speaking. What if it's so much more than that? And all of us have inside of us in our soul, we know that that's true. There is a yearning, there's a desire to find that truth that goes beyond just this physical experience. And that's what we're uncovering, unfolding a way. I never ever say the way, because all ways work. And we're all going to end up back home in the divine, in spirit. So it's a way. So it begins and starts with this recognition that there are two worlds that we experience here, do we not? We can experience suffering, and we all have. One of the things that I've learned, not only as a minister but a life coach, is no one gets out of here without some of this. We all have suffering at some level, but we can also have experienced grace. Have we not? Well, some people haven't. But we can have both. And we do. Or struggle versus ease. Or turmoil versus peace. Or darkness versus light. Sadness versus happy. And may I say, hell here on earth. Or heaven. We have all experienced some of all of that on the spectrum. I would say of the 8.5 billion people on the planet, the majority of them do also. And some people, live much more on the side of suffering and struggle and turmoil and darkness, do they not? The negativity just oozes out of them. You can feel the energy. You can be around it. It almost repels you at times. And you have also found those who live on the other side. Have all this light and love coming out of them, and you're just drawn to them like a moth to a lantern. It's like, yeah, I want to, whatever that's going on there, I want some more of that. That's what we're going to talk about today. How do we do more of the side that we want? If you remember the last study we just did, the series was the two questions. Is it what I want, and does it feel good? Those are the questions that keep driving us through this process. I'm going to add another question for you. Am I feeling unconditional love right now? Am I feeling unconditional love right now? And if the answer is yes, do more of that. If the answer is no, then we have something that we've been given as a gift from the Creator. We have been given one thing that's different than all other animals, right? We know what that is. Nobody knows? Free will, right? Choice. We get to choose. But with that comes a gift that we don't often hold. And that gift is, yes, I feel sadness right now. But I always have the freedom to choose another thought. Always. No one can hold you to that negative thought but you. And that's what we're going to be looking at as we go through this process today. Back to the chart that we've been studying is the chart of our divine self. This whole chart is us. And the pieces of it, as we bring it all together, is the I am presence. I am present means the God within us, the divine within us. Right? The Creator within us. That's that perfection that I spoke about earlier that all of us have. You know, many times when I spiritual coach people, and I say there's nothing for you to fix. There's nothing wrong with you. You have just forgotten who you are. And many times that's a strange concept, because so much of coaching and so much of what the whole self-improvement is, you got to fix yourself. You got to do better at this and this and this to become. No, you're perfect inside. Absolutely, totally perfect. Now, I'm not saying that you always feel that. And I'm not saying we always remember who we are. We don't. That's part of the journey of releasing that ego entanglement that keeps us encased in bondage around negativity and feeling bad when it's not who we are. The I am presence, or the God within you, is perfect. Anything and everything of the attributes that you've given to a being, a deity, a God, whatever word you want to use for it, is within you. We just forgot. We have been taught to pray to an outside God. That's not what even what the Master Teacher Jesus said. He said it's all within you, right here, right now. And as we begin to hold on to that, now the key is how do we begin to bring it into the main light. Also in this chart then is our soul that is encapsulated by our body, physical body, as we see in the violet fire we're going to talk about. And then that mediator in the mean is our Holy Christ self. We talked all last week about that. Or Buddha nature, or Krishna consciousness, or whatever word works for you, and whatever religion you are. This isn't about a religion. This is about getting connected with truth and spirituality. We are slowly becoming more and more aware that we are spiritual beings having this experience. As we said in the Abraham series, we are vibrational beings. We understand as we vibrate, we attract. And greater harmony comes into our lives as we learn how to express more of who we truly are. Not who we were domesticated until 7, not the person who bought into the belief that you're not good enough or not worthy enough. That's not it at all, because it's not true. None of it. And you know it's not true. Even though it's playing out in your life, if you sit down and get quiet and get inside and ask, you will find who you truly are. Remember, way back, King David in the Old Testament, 6,000 years ago, said, in the stillness, be still, and you will know that I am God. The God within you and me is the perfection. All of this is life's greatest challenge, I believe. It's easy for me to stand up here and talk about it. It's not complex. It's fairly easy to understand. This is not brain surgery stuff. But what is difficult is the consistency to begin to change the habits and patterns that we have within ourselves. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, where they lie and how we begin to change those. So as we look at the physical elements, we have fire, water, earth, and air. They're the four keys that make up the physical world. We are made as a mirror image of that. And our bodies, we have 4 lower bodies. Now what's interesting is there's been a lot of talk in the last 20 years about body, soul, and mind and all that. The problem is they missed the most important one. And that's the etheric or the memory body. It's where our subconscious lies. It's where all the memories are. And we can do all the work we want in the mental, emotional, and physical and ignore the etheric or the memory body. Pardon me, and not a lot changes. And we're going to see why in that process. As you begin to understand this, I think some things will come clear. Because one of the most difficult things in coaching someone through this process is they'll look at me and say, like, I've been through this now so many times. I thought I was done with that. Well, we're done with it at the mental, emotional, and physical level. We're not done with it at the etheric or the memory. And that's what's key. If you take nothing away from today, understand how important that memory body is. So let's talk about it. And as you can see, it correlates with the fire element in the physical. It's the least understood and the hardest to change. It truly is. And our etheric body stores our habits, our beliefs, our patterns, our karma, any karmic debt. You know, whether you have a belief that you've lived other lives or not, it really doesn't matter. If you do, as I do, you bring that stuff with you if it's not released. In this teaching, the teaching is, it's like from the navel on down is where this stuff is in your energetic bodies. It's out of your consciousness. It's out of your sight. It's subconscious. It's unconscious. But it drives your life and it drives my life more than we ever knew. Oh, God's calling. Maybe he's calling in that he's hungry. One large pizza. Deep, 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 unconscious, subconscious. It's where you bought into the belief, the lie that you're not worthy. If you were raised as I was in a very fundamental religion, that I was born a sinner with the blemish of my soul, that's where this belief is. Or if you had parents who never nurtured you or told you they loved you and never held you up and supported you, the feeling that you were not good enough. And if you didn't get it out of childhood, you probably, especially for young girls, they get it in middle school. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not rich enough. You're not whatever enough. Those are lies. But we have taken them in and made them who we are. And they lie as a belief in our subconscious. And they run everything we do. You can do whatever you want consciously. And best proof I have for that, you know, back in the day when they could get away with it, all gyms sold contracts in January. December and January. And you had to sign up for the year. Why? Because they knew by about 3 weeks you wouldn't be exercising anyway. Willpower, consciousness, I'm going to go work out every day, falls completely when you have something coming out of your subconscious that's in battle with what you want. And more of our behavior comes out of here than we even give credit. You ever have that experience when someone you may not even know, and all of a sudden they talk and it's like, you're triggered? Like, where did that come from? Could be tone of voice, it could be the words, it could be their physical presence, it could be, all of those are connected with triggers coming up out of the etheric body. And consciously you're like, well, yeah, you know, I love everybody. But all of a sudden inside it's like, right? Where did that come from? It comes from there. And it is the most difficult to change, and it's the most powerful behind the scenes effect of all of our lives. Every memory of those traumas are stored. They're stored actually energetically. I call them little vortexes, or like little tornadoes inside of your energy body. And they will not allow life force to flow evenly, fully, because of these things hold and take energy from us. Memories of past traumas, hurts remain unless released. These memories can cause fear, anxiety, anger, sadness, depression. They don't just go away, folks. We can deny them, we can push them down, we can stuff them in Pandora's box, but they're still there. They're still part of the energetic body that we have, and as the life force is flowing through us, it's filtered by these things. But here's what also is stored in the etheric body. Your soul's blueprint of creation. What do I mean by that? You were created in the perfect likeness and image of the divine. In the perfect likeness and image of the divine. That lies within you. That memory of that truth is within you. Gets covered up with all the entanglements and all the stuff we bought into that aren't true. But if you go deep enough within yourself and your etheric body, you will find that this is there. The second thing that's there is your blueprint of your soul's divine plan for this lifetime. We all have one. I didn't say it's easy to find, but it's there. And if you're willing to be still, if you're willing to ask, if you're willing to be consistent, it will begin to unfold for you. And how will you know? You'll know because you're at peace with what you're doing. You will see the unfoldment. At least that's my experience. It began to fold. I mean, I can tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, the absolute last thing I ever thought I'd be was a minister. Ever. I mean, I was the son of a Mennonite bishop. I mean, I think I made like a life commitment to myself, never to be a minister. Right? But it unfolded because I kept asking, what's mine to do? Is this the right thing? What's my divine path? My path had nothing to do with what I'm doing here the last 7 years, up until it did. But if you keep asking, it will unfold for you. Guaranteed. But most people that don't know their life plan, their soul's divine plan, aren't asking. And when I get, when I'm coaching someone, they'll say to me, well, you know what, I just can't figure this out. And I say, well, have you asked? Well, maybe not. And some of us don't ask. I didn't ask for a long time because I was afraid it was this. It's like, maybe if I ignore it and deny that it's even there, then it might not show up. But your soul will only let you deny it for so long, and all of a sudden it's like, I got to keep asking, I got to keep looking. And that's that unfoldment that begins to happen. Let's talk about the mental body. Again, it's the air. It's like air. Vibrates slightly below etheric, getting a little more dense as we come down. Its main function is for us to think and analyze. Those are good things to have. To a point. You can analyze to paralysis, can you not? You can analyze over and over and over again, and if you're analyzing something negative, what are you doing to the negative energy and vibration? You're driving it deeper and deeper and deeper into your being. How many people spend time analyzing what makes them feel good? You can use it and flip it, and it can actually work to your advantage. So I'm not saying any of this is bad, but I'm saying there's a limit to it, and vibrationally, energetically, it's below the etheric memory body. So most of us have done all our work. I did for most of my life, was done in the physical, emotional, mental. And I did all that stuff. I knew how to hypnotize, and I did NLP, and anything that was mental, I was there, involved in. But the mental will only take you so far. I remember as a life coach, Carl Jung said, late in his life, that through all the people he's met, all the people he worked with, and all the people he helped, anyone who's 35 years and over will never make permanent changes unless they have a spiritual experience. That's what changed the course of my life, that quote. I was like, well, I can only go this far with what I'm doing because he's right. I have watched it over and over and over again. People make 2 steps forward and 3 back, and it's like so frustrating. So our main function of the mental is to think and to analyze. Thoughts can be destructive, though, as well as constructive, can they not? You have the choice to choose which one. Now, many of us have not been trained in that. Many of us have not mastered it. Many of us didn't even know it was possible that we could change our emotions by what we thought. There is always a thought precedes any emotion. And as we understand that, and I'm feeling sad, I go back to the freedom that I have to make choice. Okay, recognize it. I'm feeling sad. Not that I am sad, right? The I am we talked about. I'm feeling sad. I don't like that feeling. I have a choice to choose another thought. And that's how mastery comes in the process. Because so many of us were trained and domesticated watching parents and teachers that emotions drove life. And we're never taught that there was always preceded by a thought. And once we learn that, we can begin to go back and choose thoughts that change how we feel. And then we begin to move into mastery of the mental and emotional body. Learning how to control the mental process and not be controlled by it is a major part of your spiritual journey. It's a major part of your awakening to the truth of who you are. I don't think you can get there unless you learn this piece. Because what happens is you begin to start down the path and you're starting to feel good, and you haven't done the work in the etheric body and the mental body, and all of a sudden you're back to the emotions of feeling bad. You don't know how to get out of it. And it's a matter of how long do you want to stay there. I was more tolerant in the past. I was like, well, it only lasted 3 days. Well, it was better than 3 weeks. But I'm like intolerant of that anymore. It's like, no, it's only good for 3 minutes. Give yourself. So one of the things that I'll talk about in a minute, one of the things about emotions is emotions move through you within 90 seconds. I want to get to the place where I'm only tolerant of negative emotions for 90 seconds. They come up. All right, I feel it. Now I choose what's next. You and I have the ability to do that. We've been given that by the Creator to do. Now, what is wisdom? Wisdom is all knowledge, right? Omniscience. All wisdom, all knowledge. Never comes from the human. There is no human being that knows everything. They just don't. Now, there are human beings who think they know everything. You might know a few of those. But it isn't true, right? I mean, right now we're working on a quantum computer that's 168 million times faster than any computer we have. That's fast. That's huge. But that's not God. That's not omniscience. That's not all-knowing. The only way we can have all-knowing or omniscience or wisdom is by accessing the spiritual nature of who we are. It's by saying, you know what? Dan's going to set Dan's mind apart and open up to wisdom. That is a conscious choice I make. And you can make. Or you can keep doing it the way you're doing it. And if you're doing it the way I was doing it most of my life, it was like, well, I know best. I know what I need. I know how to do this. How'd that work for me? Not too good. So it's a conscious choice to say, wait a minute, I'm going to set my human ego, I'm going to set my human mind aside and access this wisdom that comes to you inside, not outside. There is no wisdom outside. When someone asks me when I spiritual coach, are you going to give me the answers? I said, I have none for you. You have all the answers within you. I can facilitate processes to help you get there, but I cannot give you any answers because I have none. I have none for me anymore. And the more I'm willing to go to that place and I'm clueless and I have none, allows me to open up to the divine within. Our access, Master Teacher Jesus said, or actually it was later Paul said, put on the mind that was in Christ. Or put on the Buddha nature, or put on the Krishna consciousness. Put on. We have to make a conscious choice to do that. Remember, the call compels the answer. If you want the wisdom, if you want divine mind, you have to make that call. It will not just come to you, because then you no longer have free will, and you become a robot to it. The emotional body relates to water. It flows everywhere. Anybody ever feel that about their emotions? It's like, where did they come from, and why do they stay so long? Well, look at it this way. It's the body of E energy in motion, or emotion. That's where the word comes from. It's the energy in motion from the thought. And you remember the constructive, destructive thought you have can determine what you're going to feel in your emotion. That energy within you usually comes from around here somewhere, rises up into you, and then it comes up in here. Comes from the belly up to the head, coming out of that chakra into the mind. Can also be called your desire body. It's where your desires lie of what you want for yourself. But these also can be experienced as negative, can they not? Anger, sadness, anxiety, fear, prejudice, hatred, revenge. Or in a positive way, love, compassion, gratitude, joy. Both. I would dare say that everyone on this planet has experienced both. The key is, where are you going to spend your time? It's not that it's not going to happen. It's going to happen. I have yet to see anyone who has no negative emotions or thoughts. And if they say they do, I'm running. Because they are so disconnected with the truth within them, I don't want nothing to do with that energy. We're all going to experience it. It's part of this journey. It's part of the density of this planet called Earth, the classroom to learn. So when you begin to make these, get to the place where you begin to master some of these, and you're going to do it for a couple hours, and then all of a sudden in the afternoon, it's like, bam, where did that come from? It's all part of the patterns and habits coming up out of your etheric body, repeating over and over again. This can be the most unruly to master. And the reason being, as we look to try to master the emotion, you cannot. It's energy in motion. You can't grab the energy and put it back in the bottle. The way you master it is you go back to the thought. Because whatever you're feeling in an emotion negatively, if you begin to become that self-aware, you can go back to what thought triggered it. Because there will always be a thought before you feel it. You may not be conscious of it. It may happen so fast. But as you begin to ask, what was that thought and how can I change it so that I feel better? That's mastery. That's beginning to master through the spiritual path. Mastery brings peace and harmony to our soul. As we learn to control our thoughts, which control our emotions, we're going to find a place of balance and harmony. Buddha called it the middle way. Right? Not too negative, not too positive. What happens if you get too positive? You have the downside to balance it. This is a middle way. Balance and harmony is what makes our soul sing. It's what we feel peace and happiness with. It allows our soul, I love this quote, it allows our soul to become the reflecting pool of beauty and inspiration of her divine reality. As we come to balance and harmony, our soul begins to reflect the divine. It begins to have that peace. You've all been to a lake when it's so still that it's like a mirror. You can see the trees in it, almost like you were looking exactly at the trees. That's what this is about, allowing your soul to get to a place so quiet, so centered, so balanced. That to me is what mastery of the path. And finally, our physical body is the earth. It's a vehicle of power and action. It's literally the hands and feet of the other three bodies. We have to act it out through here. It's where we walk our talk, do we not? You know, you and all, and I have always, we've experienced this where we're having meditation and we're feeling so connected to the divine, and we go outside and all of a sudden somebody does something. And it's like, whew, right? That's where we walk our talk. It's one thing to have the meditation, and that's good because that's part of the process. We're in the process of cleaning out all the four lower bodies and all that. But as we master that, we begin to master the walk and the talk and the integration that we have when we're triggered by other people. Who triggers us? Whenever we get triggered, it's a mirror to what's not healed within us. That person, and it happens usually the people closest to you, right? Because you rub up against them more than anyone else, literally. And they're going to trigger your stuff. It shows up in relationships. Our woundedness shows up in the other person. And if we go to judgment, who am I judging? What did the master teacher say? I judge you, I judge myself. That's why, because the mirror is showing up for you to heal. For you to go to another thought that feels better. But it's so easy to become victim and judge and say, well, they triggered me. No, they didn't. You triggered you. You triggered you with the woundedness, the unhealthy part of you that is still, and no judgment, no condemnation of yourself. Actually say, you know, in society you can say, wow, thank you for that. I got work to do right there. And when I do the work, guess what? Nobody can trigger me. Eventually. All of us can get there. And here's part of the way we do that. So our four lower bodies each have the ability to bring the light of spirit through them, which is how we get to balance and harmony. As that spirit, as the I am presence, as that Christ self, Buddha nature flows through our physical energy and being, we bring more light. You know, the master teacher said, you are the light to the world, right? He never said he was. He said, you are. I am. I can't be light to the world unless I see and feel light within me. It couldn't be possible. There's light in every human being. A lot of people don't recognize the light and love that flows through them. But as you begin to recognize and acknowledge it, it begins to expand. We talked about that last week with the threefold flame. We know each body is interrelated, do we not? Science now knows physical disease, dis-ease, shows up from something coming out of the emotional body. Mental, emotional, etheric. It manifests in the physical. We focus in Western medicine almost 100% on the physical. We need to go back to what the cause was, what was creating that in us to bring it forth. Negative thoughts and feelings will manifest in the physical. We know that without a doubt. There's many studies been done. You know, you've all seen now the study they do with plants and put a negative word on the jar and the plant dies. Put a positive word on the jar and it flourishes. I mean, if plants are that connected, how connected are you and I to the negative words, negative thoughts? Habits and patterns will be triggered in the ego's soapbox drama. That's exactly why we have the drama, to recognize what the triggers are and what do we need to change them so that we are not triggered again when we go forward. So in the four lower bodies, the etheric body, the memory body, this is why it's so important, is the body of cause. And the physical body is the body of effect. And we have it backwards here in the West, and then we only look at what's happening in the physical body. But if you see what's happening in the physical body and go back to what's in the etheric body and the memory body, you can get to cause and you can go through the process to release that and let it become whole. Harmony and balance are always key to making the four lower bodies suitable vehicles for your soul. The middle way. And I keep talking about it because to me that's the key, is to learn to go through this lifetime in the middle way. So how do we begin to purify the four lower bodies? Well, you've already been given over the last couple of weeks some ideas, right? We have the Om meditation. That gets you back to the power of creation and the purity of the creation. We have the I am that I am meditation, where we brought it down, the name of the divine, put it across our heart space. Last week we had the calling down of your Holy Christ self, or your Buddha nature, or Krishna conscious. We have to call that in. Somebody asked me and says, well, why doesn't it stay? Because I don't stay focused on it. And what I am learning about myself is I need to do this every 24 hours. I imagine at some point when you're awakened or enlightened or whatever, you never have to do it again. Well, I'm not there. And so I'm finding every morning I got to get reconnected so I can feel that peace and that harmony within me. Then I go about my day. Otherwise, I'm out of sorts, and my day doesn't go very well. Another way is whenever faced with a challenge, you can ask, Mighty I Am Presence, please help me too. Act and speak as though it's your best friend. But it's a way to access the divine wisdom. Not try to figure this out yourself. You've been doing that as long as you're alive. Begin to access the wisdom. Probably the number one answer I have as a spiritual coach when I get asked questions is, ask inside. I don't have the answer. You do. And remember the promise. Ask, believe you'll get an answer, you will. That's a divine, eternal promise. But the responsibility to ask is yours and mine. Ask, believe that it will happen, and it will. Everything, no matter how small, how big. And once you get that down and you begin to work the process of creation, I call it the manifestation process, you get more and more trust in it, and you begin to do it more and more often, and you begin to see bigger and bigger results. But it will come from the belief, and what happens is you begin to do that. What am I putting in my etheric body is a belief that when I ask, I get an answer. And that builds, and it builds, and it builds more energy within you. So we had that picture of our soul and the body surrounded by violet fire. The reason for that in this teaching is violet fire is a way to purify your four lower bodies. And that's where the decrees come from. That's why I introduced these, I don't know, now 14, 15 weeks ago. And some of you, I know, have emailed me or texted me and said, you know, I've been doing these every morning, and let me tell you what's happening. But there is the most powerful way to purify the etheric body, the memory body. It will also clean the other three bodies, but it's the only way I have found, and you know, some of you know my background. I've been searching world religions my whole life. And this is the most powerful way I have found to change the etheric body. It will change everything else. But I have found so many other things that don't work when you try to change karmic debt and habits and these things, patterns that have been there for many, many lifetimes possibly. And that's why it's part of my daily thing that I do. In these discourses that we study from the 1930s, it says, violet fire, the flame decrees are most powerful with a preamble and a closing because it shows our intent. I have not introduced that because I didn't want to do too much when we got started, because some of it's new. And quite honestly, some people were very uncomfortable in the beginning. And that's what I say, it's okay, embrace it. You don't have to say it out loud if you don't want. Understand that this is your power center, this is where it comes from. This is why decrees are so powerful, differently than meditation and prayer. It's another spiritual vehicle, but it has power that others, prayer and meditation, don't have. And that's why you see changes happening so quickly. It's the most powerful and quickest way to clear all lower four bodies. So those of you who have studied feng shui from the East, those experts say this: if you have physical clutter in your physical environment, it will slow the energy flow in your home, in your work, in your car, and it will affect your lower bodies. Actually, feng shui experts can tie back someone's dis-ease back to the clutter they have in their physical environment. Clutter is probably the worst thing for energy flow. And there's all kinds of things on YouTube if you want to study a little bit of feng shui. It's important, I think, to understand, because you want to have your environment as open and clutter-free so that the energy can flow. It's what you sleep in, it's what you live in. But here's the corollary. Clutter in our four lower bodies slow energy flow and affects our soul's journey. When we have clutter of beliefs, we have clutter of karmic debt, we have all that stuff we're holding in that memory body, slows down the flow of the life force through you. And the more we begin to get that muck out of there. So here's the way I always like to put it in the physical, some of these abstracts. You and I are the light to the world, right? The light is within us. The light never gets brighter. It is what it is. It's absolute, it's eternal, it's always been there long before you and I have been here. And that light is only as bright as that light is. Right? When you see other people who appear to be brighter to you, or those who appear to be darker, it's the lens of their lamp are either smogged up or clear. And this whole process, as we clean the four lower bodies, we're cleaning the lens of our lantern. And as we release that gunk, as we release that stuff, our light begins to go into the world and appears much brighter. There's an old saying, is you don't want to see through the glass darkly. We have had dark glass around us. We've been entangled in the ego's soapbox dramas and the triggers and belief systems that aren't true. And as we begin to let them go, we begin to clean the lens 360 degrees around us, and our light begins to go into the world brighter and brighter at all times. We can feel that, but guess what? Everyone else can too. You know the people that you feel that light to. You know the people that you feel the darkness. People feel the same about you. And as we clean this, it gets brighter and brighter and brighter. There's a part of this teaching in this chapter that's really interesting to me. This is a rendition, obviously, an artist's rendition, because they don't have a way to photograph this yet. But the teaching is that the violet fire also goes subatomic and begins to clean every cell in all four of the lower bodies. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, because I can't prove it, but I can tell you what I have done is I feel it. I feel cleansing going on at the cellular level. Changed at depth is what we're talking about here. And if you want to, you can read it in the book. In this chapter, it talks about how the polarities are set up between the nucleus of the cell and the violet fire, and how it pulls everything that's in. Our cells are majority of space, right? The nucleus and everything else in there is very small. In that space is where the gunk gets, according to this teaching, and this helps us clean it out. I can't prove it, but all I can say to you is try it and see if you begin to feel it. And if you don't, then set it aside. If you do, as I have, it's something that continues to be part of my day-to-day. And they ended with this. Every day in every way, the violet flame flushes out and renews your body cells, the cells of your mind and the globe of your soul, polishing the jewel of consciousness until it glistens in the sunlight. Who wouldn't want that? I don't know about you, but I want to glisten in the sun. And finally, he said this: try it for 30 days in a row, and then assess it. Don't analyze it, don't critique it, do it. And mark your calendar, 30 days, that's how I did it in the very beginning. I said, all right, I'll give it a try for 30 days. And in 30 days I went back and analyzed how I was feeling, and that's when it became more and more part of who I was. So I'm not going to challenge you, I welcome you. If it's something that feels good, give it a try for 30 days. My suggestion is you do it in the morning, first thing, because it sets the tone for your whole day to go from there. All right.